All right, Jason. So we're on. How you
Cool.
doing, man?
I'm well. How are you today?
I'm doing very well. I know initially you were sick, then I was sick,
Yeah.
but we finally made it happen.
That's the season here, right?
Yeah, I know. Winter. It
And you
gets
don't
you.
have any excuses. I have 4 kids, so
Yeah, that's true.
that's my excuse.
That's a great excuse, and three of them are triplets, right?
Yeah,
Identical
so-
triplets.
Yes, I'll go through that because I know this is a business podcast, so the idea is a business journey podcast, but one of the things when I sat down to think about what I wanted to talk about in this, it's my journey now involves everything I do involves my kids. So I have a 6-year-old boy, and then I have identical triplets that are almost to the day 2 years younger, 4 years old. Wow. Yeah. So my wife and I had one kid in 2013, my first son Aiden, and like I said, then 2 years later, 8 days short of 2 years later, we had identical triplet boys, and it was spontaneous, meaning that there was no fertility assistance.
Yeah.
We were just trying to have a second kid. We ended up with 4.
That's crazy.
And at the time, I was working at a large law firm. I'm an attorney at a large law firm in Manhattan, commuting from Brightwaters, doing the grind, taking the Long Island Railroad.
That's what my wife does.
Yeah, it's awful.
Yeah.
It's awful. Working, the best day I ever worked was a 9-hour day in terms of at the office. So you add the 3-hour commute, and it was an 11-hour day, 12-hour day, the best,
Yeah.
And a lot of days I was working until 7 or 8 at night. So when you have kids, that changes your analysis of like what you're doing. So financially, the rewards are fantastic, and the work in terms of the level of sophistication and just kind of setting yourself up for experience is fantastic. But
Yeah.
it was when the triplets came in 2015, it was like this isn't going to work.
Yeah.
My wife is also a professional. She's an assistant principal
Okay.
at Nassau BOCES.
Okay. So you're both busy people.
Yes, we both have demanding jobs, and
And then you have to pay for the childcare.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's huge.
I was gonna say that's
That's another huge thing. So we live in Brightwaters, which is Bayshore Schools. They have what's called universal pre-K, full day. The acronym's UPK, universal pre-K, full day UPK from. I just dropped my kids off at 8:45 at the Y, and until 3:00, it's free.
Wow.
At 4 years old.
Oh, okay.
So
Okay.
imagine what the daycare is times 3.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we were
My
doing that
God.
until September.
Okay.
And I literally had the date of our last payment for daycare like marked in my calendar because it was literally a second mortgage.
Yeah, I can't even imagine. It's funny. I never really thought about it before because I don't have kids, but now that I'm getting closer and it's in talks with the wife, I start looking into stuff and start talking to people, and I'm like, oh my God,
Yeah.
it's gonna be like
Yeah.
you said, a second mortgage.
So
possibly.
like you don't think about universal pre-K when you're single or even when you're married and don't have kids.
No.
It's not even. It's nowhere on your map. It's
Nope,
just
not at all. Exactly.
And then once you have kids, that's all you're thinking about is the schools and daycares and picking them up and the logistics of
Yeah.
that.
That's
So
a
in
good
terms
point.
of like kind of getting back on point here, that's what I think like for a business journey, your business journey changes significantly once you have children. It's like completely different.
Yeah.
Like before I had kids, I never thought about anything except my career, like in terms of personally, how am I going to like make my career work?
Yeah.
Let me change that because like I don't want to make it seem like all I cared about was my career because
Yeah.
that's not true. I actually took a long time to get going on my career, but once I did, I didn't have the complication of children, which changes a lot
Yeah.
in a good way because you have a lot of other parts of your life are a lot more fulfilled and just different
Yeah.
than just work. Because work is work.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
good, it's fulfilling, and it sustains you essentially, but it's work.
Yeah, yeah. My uncle and I talk about it a lot. That it's almost like he said, even at his age, he's 48 now, and he said basically every 5 to 10 years, your mindset is a lot different.
Yeah.
Even especially when you go from 20 to 25,
Sure.
25 to 30. But he said even the way he thinks now is different than he did when he was 37.
Yeah.
Like you said, kids come into the picture. You start thinking about your kids more and family more, going to kids' games. At one time, maybe you thought about your career a little bit more.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's constantly changing. So
Yeah.
as long as you can adapt to it,
It's funny too because we live on Long Island, which is it's such a high cost of living.
Yeah.
So like take my example. Like I do pretty well financially. So does
Yeah.
my wife. She's an assistant principal for a public school. So but we still, and I don't want to say we struggle, but it's still a grind.
Yeah.
It's not like we're like thriving,
I hear you.
You know?
Yeah, I hear you. My
So-
wife works. We don't even have kids, and
Yeah.
we both work full time, and it's
You're grinding it
Yeah.
out, and then once you add kids to it, the costs, increase exponentially, times 4 for me.
yeah,
And to your uncle's point, like your mindset changes. It certainly changes. I'm not that old. I just turned 43 a couple weeks ago, but certainly your mindset changes.
Yeah.
I'm hopeful that in the next 5 years that I'm a little more comfortable financially in terms of like savings and things like that.
yeah.
Or I
Retirement
guess
and all
more
that fun
paying
stuff.
down debt more than savings, because
Yeah.
that's the big thing.
Yeah, that's the big thing.
I have my law degree. I also have an MBA in finance and my undergrad. So I have loans on 3 degrees, plus my wife has 2 degrees.
Yeah.
So we're paying back student loans on 5 degrees. So
That's a lot.
It all those things play into your business journey, right? Like me starting my own law firm 3 years ago, one of the huge variables in that was my wife's job, because she had a good job that paid well, and we had health insurance.
Yeah, I was just gonna say the benefits.
I actually have friends of mine that are attorneys that are essentially stuck because their wives don't work or they work part-time, and they're willing to take the financial risk that they know in a year, 18 months, they'll be at their same income level or close, but they're scared of the insurance.
Yeah, my insurance right now, my employer helps pay for it, but it's just individual. There's no group plan or anything,
Yeah.
and it's about $625 a month for just me by myself.
Just for a single.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is crazy. That's
Yeah.
not with my wife. That's
Yeah.
not with kids. I'm hopping onto my wife's plan soon,
Sure.
but
Yeah.
hopefully this month. But
So, to like
I can see
bleed
how
into
it could be
policy
crazy.
a little bit, everybody talks, and I'm not a big Medicare for all or something like that, but in terms of economic stimulation, if everybody had access to healthcare, I think you would see more entrepreneurship,
yeah,
because it's stifling people. Now, I have
Of
friends
course.
of mine that are literally stifled because of it.
Yeah.
And if that's in the legal industry where your salary is good, imagine what it's doing. It's suppressing, innovation in other fields.
yeah. No,
Which-
it's a good point.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the individual plans, if you really look into them, the coverage isn't all that great, and the deductibles are really high.
Yeah.
When you're on a group plan, it's different, but the individual ones are not all that great, and not all the big hospitals accept them. So it's, it's definitely tough.
Yeah.
But yeah, some sort of product like that where everyone could have access to healthcare would be nice.
Yeah. So now, when you referenced your uncle before, that's at your insurance agency. That's
Yep.
Eric Funk, right?
Eric Funk, yeah.
okay.
Yeah, he's my
You
uncle.
guys do my malpractice. That's
Yeah,
why.
yeah. Yeah, Eric Funk, he's my uncle. He's been running the agency for about 23 years, 24 years,
Yeah.
somewhere around there.
Yeah.
And I've been with him for almost 10 years now. I think
So
it'll be
how
10
did
years
you
in
get
February.
involved with that?
So I got out of high school, went to college for a year, kind of how I was telling you before.
Yeah.
Didn't really enjoy college too much, so I joined the military. 6 years in the military, I would say I don't remember the exact year, but like halfway through the military, I met my uncle for the first time.
Okay.
And he invited me to his house. I went to his wife is my aunt, so I
Okay.
went to my aunt's house.
Sure.
And at that time, I never knew anybody with money. I grew up with a very, I don't want to say poor family,
Yeah.
but it was a single mother.
Yeah.
We lived in like basement apartments.
Sure.
And she
On Long Island, huh?
on Long Island, yeah,
Wow,
yeah.
that's
I remember she always found like very inexpensive rent, like
Yeah.
$750 a month.
Yeah.
That
Well,
type of deal.
Rent's
Yeah.
crazy here.
Yeah. So, it was a struggle, but then I met my uncle, and it was funny. He has a house in Bayport, so I get to his house. I see he's got a couple nice cars in the driveway.
Yeah.
I'm like,
And
"Ooh,
you're pretty
yeah."
young still, and you're in the military.
Yeah, I was.
Nobody in the
how was
military
I?
has any money.
I was 19 years old.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so I I go in the backyard. I see he's got a boat in the backyard, an in-ground pool, a nice house.
Yeah.
So I just straight out asked him, "Oh, so like, what do you do for a living?"
Yeah.
And he told me, and I was like, "Insurance." Like, I would have never thought you can even make money in insurance, and I never found it interesting at all. But he told me he kind of has an expertise in contractors and restaurants and stuff like that. So I basically
he found a niche.
yeah, so I basically just asked him, "Oh, like, how do you get to something like that?"
Yeah.
And I said, "Are you hiring?" Like, I basically just straight out asked him, like, the first day I met him. And he was like, "Yeah, I don't want to say he shook me off, but he was kind of like, yeah, I get your license and we'll talk about it.
Yeah.
We'll get you a spot in the office. And I was like,
Yeah.
okay. So I literally just went home, and the way the internet is now, I just Google,
Yeah.
how do you get
You got your license.
How do you get your license? Yeah. Then I did like a 3-month class, took the test, passed. Then I literally just called my uncle the next day. I was like, oh, so I got my license. Is that spot still open?
Can I start Monday?
And I could tell he was kind of like, yeah, actually, yeah, call me back. Hold on, let me look everything over. I'll call you back. And to this day, he tells me, he's like, honestly, he's like, I'm happy you did it. But he's like, I was so thrown off guard. And he's like, usually you meet people and they don't really follow through. Yeah. And he's like, I had plenty of people that say, oh, yeah, I'll work for you. And then he just never hears from them again.
Yeah.
So I don't know where that comes from in me. Growing up, I was always the type of person I'd knock on doors and shovel driveways.
Sure.
In the fall, I'd rake leaves, knock on doors, $10
You have an
a lawn.
entrepreneurial
Yeah.
spirit.
So
right?
I think to me it seemed completely normal,
Yeah.
but to other people they're like, "Wow, you did that." But to me, it just seems like
Yeah.
why wouldn't you do that?
So
it seemed like a good opportunity.
That reminded me of a story. So, and I graduated law school in 2004.
Mm-hmm.
I went to undergrad at the University of Colorado.
Yeah.
And I went to law school here in New York City.
Okay.
After I graduated in 2004, I moved back to Colorado, took the bar there in 2004 and passed it.
Okay.
But my mindset, I wasn't ready to practice law.
Mm-hmm.
I just wasn't. I was all over the map. I wasn't ready to be a professional.
Yeah. Colorado's a fun town too.
Yeah,
Right?
I was. It was just like, and it's fun. I always say this about attorneys. So you go to undergrad for 4 years, and then some attorneys go right into law school, or maybe take a year off.
Yeah,
And then you go to school for 7 years,
It's a long
and then
time.
you get out,
Yeah.
and then you're supposed to be advising business owners and all this other sophisticated stuff. And
Without experience,
you literally
really.
have no experience doing
Yeah.
anything except taking tests and writing papers. And that always bothered me. And not that I went out and got a job doing business, but I ended up moving to Vail for a ski season. That was 2005 into 2006.
That sounds like a blast.
It was great. It was like one of the best winters of my life. I worked at a ski shop. One of
That's
my buddies from here moved out there. He's still there. He hasn't left. He's
got a big beard and
he just had he had a kid. He's living a life out there. He has a kid out there. He has, he still skis like 50, 60 days a year.
Oh, that's awesome.
And it was great. It was fantastic. But after that season, I was like, I was just turned 30. I was like, all right, I got to get going now. Like that was when I was like, okay, it's time to like get going. So I came back to New York, took the bar here in 2006, passed it, and then I got a temp job. I was working at Viacom, and then I got my first law firm job in Melville.
Okay.
It was great office, great people. Work was awful. It was insurance defense, which you probably know what that is. It's you basically, as a young attorney, it's good because you go to court every day and you get good experience. You do depositions, things like that. I worked there for a year, and then I moved to a firm in the city.
Okay.
And then I jumped around a little bit. But then I had this really unique opportunity to go work for my uncle, who owned an environmental contracting company. He was looking. It was a legacy company. My grandfather started it.
Okay.
And then he was the next in line, and then he was basically looking for somebody to pass it on to, kind of informally. The idea was, come if you like it, we'll see what we can do. There was no deal or anything.
Yeah.
But after 2.5 years there, it just didn't work out. So now I'm kind of at a crossroads in my career. I had practiced litigation for 2.5 years.
Yeah.
And then I was like de facto in-house counsel for a construction company, but also was running construction work too. So I was like, what am I going to do here? So I'll never forget. I was looking on the job boards on the internet, and I saw this job post through a recruiting agency for a large firm was hiring a construction litigation attorney with 1 to 3 years experience.
Okay.
I was like, this is exactly me.
I was going to say, it seems like the stars aligned right there.
Here's the problem with those. It was with a big firm. Big firms are really strict in who they hire.
Okay.
So, like, if you didn't go to like a top 30 school, they won't even interview you.
Wow.
You can't even get through the door. So I'll never forget. I sent my resume to the recruiter.
And that's in the city?
In the city.
Okay.
Yeah. I sent my resume to the recruiter. She looked at it. She goes, "You're perfect. Let me send it to the firm." And the firm's got gatekeepers. They have recruiting specialists and things like that. And they know what to look for with the partners, what they want. And I didn't meet the criteria on paper. In experience, I did. So the recruiter said they're not interested. I was like, okay. So I remember looking at the job boards more, and I saw the same exact post about a month later from a different recruiter. And I was, this is the same firm. So I sent it to the second recruiter. They did the same thing. They sent it to the firm. The firm rejected it. They said, no good. So I was like, I remember to this day. This is in like 2010. This is
Yeah.
10 years ago. I remember being like, this is bullshit. Like because I knew if I got an interview, they would hire me.
Yeah.
So what I did is I ended up, and the firm was anonymous, but what I did is I did some research and I figured out who the firm was. And then I found the head partner in their public works and construction division, and I sent him a direct email.
There you go.
I'll never forget the email I wrote. I saved it. I still have it.
That's awesome.
He responded. And then he said, give me a little bit of time. I'm going to put you in touch with the right people, and we're going to bring you in for an interview. They did.
Nice.
They hired me as a contract attorney, and then after 6 months, they made me a permanent attorney. I was there for 5 years.
That's awesome. So you cut out the middleman.
And the best part
And you
about
just
that,
went direct,
if
yeah.
I would have got hired by the recruiter, I would have got paid half
Oh.
in terms of when I was a contract, because the recruiter takes a
They take
rip.
a cut. Yeah.
So I got paid. There was no middleman.
Yeah.
I got paid direct, and then they hired me as an attorney. I was on their staff. You know.
Yeah.
And I worked on some of the most sophisticated construction stuff in New York City. I worked on East Side Access, which is Long Island Railroad to Grand Central. We did bankruptcy and litigation work on One World Trade Center. I actually
okay.
filed a mechanics lien on One World Trade Center myself.
Wow.
I worked on a new Tappan Zee Bridge, advising the New York State Thruway Authority, like the most sophisticated construction work there is.
Yes,
know.
you got great experience.
Great experience, fantastic experience.
Yeah, and I think I've said this on, I think, probably every podcast so far, but I think that's the best way to learn in any business you get into.
Yeah.
I know some insurance companies that, like, I don't know if I should say any names, but there is a company, Allstate, they'll, like, send you I'll get emails all the time. Hey, start your own agency. Start your own agency.
Yeah, I've seen those.
And I've had friends call me that have zero insurance experience, and hey, I talked to this company, and they said I can start my own insurance agency and make $100,000 the first year.
Yeah.
And I go, you don't have any experience though.
Yeah.
You're
You
just
have
gonna
no book of business.
The book's
You have
just gonna
nothing.
shrink.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or they
give you like a mini book.
Yeah, they give you a mini book, and it's
And they
just
want
like
you to build it.
No, I say go work for a big agency first, kind of like how you went to work for a big firm first, and then if you want to own your own thing, then open your own thing over time.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's funny how some people get stuck in that mindset of just they want to get rich quick.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Sure. That's one of the mental notes I had for this though is I want to push back a little bit against the sentiment, the anti-college sentiment.
Okay.
I agree with you that experience is the way to go.
Yeah.
But my whole thing is that your brain's a muscle, and college exercises that muscle.
I agree with that.
And I don't care what you do, if you're smarter and you're more well-rounded, you're going to do that thing better.
Yeah.
And college isn't for everybody, but I don't care if you're a plumber or you're a doctor. And I'm not saying either one is better, but if you've exercised your brain, you're going to do those jobs better.
Yeah.
And I understand the difficulty, especially in America now, because student debt and things like that. I'm not one of these anti-college persons. I'm just not. I think college has a lot of benefit, even for people that are tradespeople, because life is about doing things you don't want to do. And saying, well, college isn't for me is kind of a give up. Like,
I
if
agree
you
with that.
try hard enough, it's for everybody.
Yeah.
Certainly some people it's easier for because they have those skills, whatever it be, critical thinking and the ability to write and read better or whatever, you know, read faster, comprehend better. But if you fight through things, it makes you better. You know, it makes you better. It makes you a better professional. It makes you a better person. It makes you better in your marriage, everything.
Yeah.
You know, where you can just say, this is too hard to give up.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with that. I think it's funny with business, I don't own a business, but I would think, yes, yet. So if I did, I'm just trying to think, because I don't have an MBA. I don't have a master's in business. So if I thought that would help my business, when I got to the point, maybe I would hire somebody who had, because you need that knowledge either way, right?
Yeah. A lot of my clients are contractors because taking the experience I learned at the big firm in the city. Yeah. When I came out on my own, I've tried to make that my specialty. When you're on your own, you got to do more than that because you don't get. It's harder to bring into business in just one really niche field. But I see it with a lot of construction owners. These guys are fabulous. It's generally men. These fabulously wealthy men that are really good at being contractors, and they're really bad at like the administrative portion of a company. Yeah, they're just not good at it. And part of that's having different backgrounds, you know.
Yeah, like accounting
Accounting and just human
Learn.
resources and just kind of just general management, like layers of management and managing and all that stuff, which, and again, school is not going to teach you that, but it gives you strategies
Yeah.
that you can implement in action. you
Yeah,
know?
and it gives. I mean, from things that I've read, listen, I only went to college for a year, but things that I read, if you do go to a well-known college, I heard the networking portion that helps.
Sure.
You meet such
Yeah.
a wide variety of people.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Without a doubt.
So yeah, like you said, I think it just has a ton of benefits. You're right.
I would imagine though your military experience teaches you a lot of like leadership skills.
Yeah. Oh
and
my god.
management skills.
Oh my god. Yeah. That's
Because you're forced into stressful situations. Like, well, now you're in charge.
yeah. No. 100%. I think one of the biggest things for me was discipline and humility. Just. I mean, I don't want to say I was undisciplined, but
You were.
it really just.
We all are.
Yeah.
I'm still undisciplined.
Yeah. I mean, I guess everyone is, right, to
Yeah.
a certain extent, but I mean, it really helped me put things in order and be more detail oriented and
Yeah.
just be thankful for what
All
I
that
have.
not give up stuff, right?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Where you're just like, there's no giving up in the military. You just take that an option.
If you really want something.
My
you
dad
just
always
have to
said,
go
my
get it.
dad was drafted into the military in the 60s. He goes, there's no sick days in the military. Like, you're
Yeah.
not calling sick.
Nah.
Like, you show up.
Yeah.
Like, there's no,
That's
like,
it.
there's no babe. It's the big boys, you know?
Yeah.
There's no crying in the military type
Nah.
of thing, you know?
Yeah, I remember.
Oh,
the-
I can't come. I have a cold today.
Yeah,
you know?
that's I remember there was one week they call it Beast Week, and it's where they kind of just everyone sets up tents and they live outside for a week basically. And I was so sick that week,
Yeah.
but
Who
what am I gonna do? If
Yeah.
you can actually go, there are places they'll let you go to nurse's aid until
Yeah.
you get better, but then you get held back
Yeah.
weeks. It doesn't look that
And,
all
yeah,
that
and
great.
then they all look at you like, this is the guy who went to the nurse's
look
tent.
at this wimp. Yeah,
Like, unless you have a broken leg. you know?
exactly. So yeah, just fight through it.
Yeah.
But I wanted to get back to your experience. Where did you first, when did you first decide, hey, I want to be a lawyer? What was how did that whole process go?
So I was born. Probably a lot of lawyers say this. When I was young, everybody was like, "Oh, you'd be a good lawyer," which is between me and you, that's bullshit.
Yeah.
Because you arguing with your parents or your friends has no bearing whatsoever whether or not you're
It's
a good
completely
attorney or
different.
not. It just isn't anything. I studied philosophy in undergrad,
Okay.
which is basically fun to like hang out and read.
Yeah.
And like sit under a tree and contemplate like existence.
Yeah.
In terms of value in the open market, it's zilch.
Yeah.
Zilch. So when I graduated, I was like, what am I gonna do? So then I went to law school, and I'll never forget this too. It wasn't even orientation; it was the first day of law school. The dean of the school said, "If you're not here because you want to be a lawyer, leave." And I remember sitting in my seat, looking at him, and being like, I don't really want to be a lawyer. I'm here because I want to get a job or like make money. Everybody thinks they're going to be rich if they become a lawyer.
Yeah.
And there's almost every attorney is like that. There's so few attorneys that go to law school because they want to be attorneys. I mean, there certainly are. There's people out there like that, but most people aren't.
Yeah.
And then what happens is you get kind of trapped in these jobs like insurance defense or, whatever the field is. And I remember one of the jobs I had years ago, the managing partner in the office, he was like, nobody goes to law school to do what we do. And I never wanted to be that guy. I never wanted to be like stuck. So after I left a big firm when my kids came, I worked at a small firm on Long Island for about a year and a half. And that's when I started to really think about starting my own thing. Because I had all the experience in the city, so I had all this confidence in my profession. And then I came out here, and city practice is much different than Long Island practice. The city is it's just more sophisticated. It just is. You just do the courts are more demanding. Everything's more demanding. It just is. Just the way it is. And I think every attorney will agree to that.
Yeah.
So then that's when I started to think about going out on my own. And when I was thinking about leaving the small firm now, I actually interviewed at another big firm in the city. And I remember sitting in the interview and thinking, I'm going to make these people rich. This is the same routine again. I'm going to come here. I'm going to give them my blood, sweat, tears, and soul, riding that train, missing my kids. And I'm going to make a great salary, and they're going to take home most of it.
Yeah. No, I mean, listen, that's a really smart mindset.
Yeah.
And it's funny. I only have one or two friends that think like that. And just now at my age, I'm starting to find out that that's extremely rare.
Yeah.
Where do you think that comes from? Like,
I don't know.
Yeah. Because there's some people, they're just so comfortable. Hey,
Yeah.
oh, I work 9 to 5 and,
They're content.
I make X and I'm happy,
Yeah.
you know? Or maybe they're not happy, but.
I've never been happy until I'm taking a risk.
Mm-hmm.
I remember like riding that train.
I couldn't agree with that more. Yeah.
Riding that train when I worked at the big firm, I remember looking at the window, looking at my reflection, being like, take the fucking risk.
Mm-hmm.
I remember saying that to myself.
Yeah.
And it's fucking scary, you know? It's because, at what time I had one kid and I was married, I had a house, I had a mortgage. But then I always say this to my wife, I go, what's going to happen? We're going to file bankruptcy? We're not going to take our kids, so what?
Yeah. What's the worst that's going to happen?
All that safety is kind of an illusion anyway, because tomorrow everything could tank and you lose your job, and then you're not safe anymore. So going out on your own isn't really that much less safe. And it, in a sense, it also frees you up too, because you don't. Then you're like, the buck stops with you then.
Yeah.
Like there's no like, well, my boss is a jerk, so I didn't get a raise. There's none of that.
There's
excuses.
no excuses. Yeah.
And I don't, to answer your question, I don't know where it comes from. I think it's just kind of innate in me that I've always thought about. I've tried to get my friends to open businesses with me. Friends that have more like field construction knowledge, because like I cannot work with my hands. It's not who I am.
Yeah.
But you want to write a letter? I'll write you a sick ass letter. Yeah. I'm going to argue a point. I'll argue a point.
Yeah.
But I always value that, because if you team up with somebody like that, you be the field guy, I'll be the office guy, and we could be wildly successful.
Yeah.
And again, a lot of times I ran into these problems where, not problems, but these people didn't want to take the jump. They don't want to take the leap.
Gotcha. Yeah.
They're comfortable where they are because they're making a salary, and people are scared.
Yeah, I agree. It's funny. Will Smith, a quote I love from Will Smith is he says that the greatest reward is always on the other side of risk.
Yeah.
And I couldn't agree with that more.
Well, look at any successful person, right? Most successful people have taken wild risks.
Yeah, they have some crazy story.
And I look back at me starting my own firm 3 years ago in December, 3 years. My wife and I talked about it the other day. Maybe not the other day, but a couple months ago. I left a job where I was getting paid well, and it was safe and comfortable. They were well established. They weren't going anywhere.
Yeah.
To start my own firm. I cobbled together a few clients and basically had no income for the first couple of months.
That's scary.
And I had 4 kids. 1 was 3 and 3 were 1.
Yeah.
And my wife had a job, so we had insurance and she had income. But I depleted my retirement savings. But I didn't care. I'm like, I never think about that. I'm just 43 now. Like, I don't care about retirement now. Like, I'll make it up.
Yeah.
And that people care about that too. They care about like, whoa, I need to be ready for retirement. Like, what if you get hit by a bus tomorrow?
Yeah, that's, oh my God. Yeah, I couldn't agree with you anymore on all that stuff. Because I've seen people, I'm sure everybody knows someone who's passed away too young, and it could happen at any time, honestly.
And that's a big thing, especially on Long Island, because it's so expensive to live here. Most people that are doing well are linked into the government somehow, right?
Yeah.
Teacher, policeman, fireman, something like that. A government worker,
Yep.
and they have pensions.
Pension, yeah.
And I hear all these people talk about pensions, and even my wife, like she doesn't ever think about her pension. That's just not who she is. She's an educator and a mom first, so she doesn't think about finance at all in terms of her pension. She doesn't even know her retirement date and things like that. But I'm always like, you might not ever get that. The way things are going, you might not ever get that. Like, everybody's banking on this. Like, I go, why don't you become like? Why are you relying on your job to give you retirement? Go earn it. And I'm not saying that people don't deserve it. They deserve it. But it's just not the way I think.
Yeah. No, I agree with that too. Yeah. I mean, look at, wasn't it just, what was one of those huge wasn't it just GE that cut a bunch of people's pensions?
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like
I think GM had to do it.
GM.
GM.
Okay.
I think they had to stay afloat. We could be wrong about
pensions,
that. But I think it was one of the auto companies. They cut a lot of these auto workers' pensions after the fact that they were vested because they had to.
Yeah, it's crazy. That's crazy. I also wanted to talk about, just before we forget and get too far off topic, Bayshore a little bit.
Yeah.
I did some research. We've talked before about parking meters and meetings about parking meters. Here we go. Right. So what's going on with the parking meters at Bayshore? Is there any plan for that to be changed, or is it kind of just? What do you think they're at with everything?
My firm, on behalf of the Chamber of Commerce, Bayshore Chamber, Greater Bayshore Chamber of Commerce, filed a lawsuit against the town of Islip. November 2018,
Okay.
challenging the lawfulness of the program.
Oh, that was you. Okay.
Yeah, that was us.
Okay.
We've had some back and forth settlement discussions with the town.
Mhm.
At this time, there's been no agreement on
Okay.
either side to change,
Okay.
essentially, and we're litigating it.
Okay.
There's some motions pending, things like that, but there's no plan. Our action hasn't prompted the town to change.
Gotcha.
They believe their program's lawful.
Mhm.
We believe it's not, and that's kind of where we're at. We're
Okay.
essentially at a litigation stalemate, essentially.
Yeah, and tell me if I have it wrong, because my wife and I try to talk about it, and
Yeah.
I don't want to mess it up too much. So is it basically that the town of Islip, Bay Shore, is the only one that has parking meters, and that money isn't directly going to Bay Shore? It's going to like a fund, I guess, that's for the town of Islip.
So what we've argued is that, and not to get too technical here, pursuant to the vehicle and traffic law in New York State and the town law, our interpretation of specific statutes in those two sections of the law, that parking meters in the context of a town, the first step of creating a meter district is to create an improvement district, it's called.
Okay.
And then what happens is it's no different than a fire district or an ambulance district. And then all the revenues from that district stay in the parking district.
That makes sense, yeah.
The town didn't do that in this case. They're saying they have the authority under general police powers and the authority to regulate roads in other areas of the town law and other statutes, that they're allowed to just put the meters up and then credit the revenues to the general fund. So it's essentially whether or not our argument's right.
Yeah,
That
I gotcha.
So, and they say that they're right. And a judge could say they are. We've made a legal argument that they're wrong.
Yeah, it's a little wild because it's the Bayshore. I mean, I live in Bayshore. The Bayshore parking lots and train stations specifically are
Not
hate to
nice.
say it, but they're dirty.
Yeah.
There's garbage.
Yeah.
When it rains, they're all flooded.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, wait, if we're the only city with parking meters,
Yeah.
why is our parking lots probably one of the worst in
So,
the
and
town of Islip?
and if you look at examples of other parking districts, they're almost all villages.
Yeah.
Babylon, Patchogue, Port Jeff, Mineola, Huntington.
Yeah.
Those are all villages.
Okay.
And under the village law in New York State, it actually expressly allows the village to put those money into their general fund. Whereas the town, there is no express language like that.
Yeah.
So it's, look, going back 18 months ago, I know some people at the Chamber of Commerce, they asked me to look into it.
Yeah.
And my initial analysis was there's nothing here.
Yeah.
But then I dug a little further, and I actually contacted my old librarian at my law school, and she pulled some legislative history. And the interesting part about all this is in 1968, both those statutes I referenced before, the vehicle and traffic law and the town law, were amended specifically, we argue, for this reason.
Wow.
Because the Assemblyman Vincent Belletta, and when you pass a bill, there's a memorandum in support of it, basically explaining why you're doing it. In that memorandum, it talks about in the context of a town, how meters affect the hamlet that they're in, and for that reason, the district should be created and money should stay there. Because they're bearing the burden of it, they should reap the benefit as well. It makes
sense. Yeah.
It does make sense. Yeah. But just because it makes sense doesn't mean we're right.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, there's a lot more factors at play than just being right.
Yeah. And another thing, this is just me being completely selfish because I live in Bayshore and I know you're knowledgeable in this area.
Yeah.
What do you think of all the apartments going up? Because I hear so many mixed things. The apartments are bad, it's overcrowded, but then I hear, it's going to help build the economy of Bayshore and it's bringing money to the businesses. And what's kind of your whole thought?
My opinion of the apartments in Bayshore is they are fantastic.
Okay.
I say build. Again, taking a step back, high level, the demographics are clear. We've been losing young people on Long Island for decades, since the 90s. And that's because of the high cost of living and the lack of affordable housing. And look, I understand these are luxury apartments, most cases, but anybody that's against these apartments, do yourself a favor. Go look for an apartment. Almost every single apartment you can get is either in somebody's house or an old garden apartment,
Yeah.
and the rents are astronomical.
Yeah. I was renting a little over a year ago, so
Yeah.
yeah.
And now go to other places. Go to the cities people move to. Go to Charlotte. Go to Raleigh. Go to Orlando. Go to Arlington, Virginia. And go look at the rents there and look at the available options. It's everything we're building here now. People leave here because of that. They look at the rents. I used to live in Denver. Same thing. I lived in Denver. I lived in Boulder and then Denver in the late 90s, early 2000s, right around the turn of the century. And there was tons of apartments then. Tons. Just like we're building here now, finally, 20 years later.
Yeah. Yeah.
All these other up-and-coming cities have done that because they knew it would draw young people from Chicago and New York and Boston and L.A. and San Francisco, and it did.
Yeah.
And there's a balance to it too, because Bayshore to me it's already a downtown.
Yeah.
It's not like we're getting rid of green space. It's not like we're building in the middle of a neighborhood or something like that. We're redeveloping, in some cases, blighted properties, or we're redeveloping already existing properties.
Yes, good point.
And I know the big one right now is the Toro property.
Toro, yeah.
And that Union Boulevard corridor there is an unmitigated disaster. I mean, go to that 7-Eleven and tell me if you feel safe.
Yeah, no.
Now, when you put 395 or 495 luxury apartments across the street, what do you think it's going to do to that area? It's going to completely revitalize it.
Yeah.
That strip of stores right across from the train station, what's now empty.
Yeah.
The Thai restaurant used to be there.
Yep.
Those are all going to be filled. It's going to be, I guarantee there's going to be a coffee shop there, a bookshop, or a restaurant.
Yeah.
Because they know they have 700 immediate walking distance residents, and including, I know there's another development down Park Avenue. Actually, there's two on Park Avenue.
Yeah, it's
back
two.
there. So you're going to have 1,000, 1,500, 2,000 residents within walking distance to that. And what that's going to do too, the collateral impact, is it's going to make the train station better, because the MTA police and the Suffolk County police are going to be forced to. And I'm not saying they're not doing their jobs now. It's a difficult situation.
Yeah.
I don't know how to handle it. I don't know how to fix it.
Yeah.
But they're gonna be forced to clean that area up, because they're gonna have to.
Yeah.
So it's going to revitalize the area. It's going to create construction jobs in the immediate case. It's going to increase the tax base.
Yeah.
It's going to bring more young people and just people that potential customers to downtown Bayshore, which is all in walking
I
distance.
agree with that, yeah.
So the only objections to it are, you always hear two things: parking,
Yeah.
cars. I don't care. Figure it out.
Yeah.
Build a parking garage. I would build skyscrapers. I'm not even kidding. People think I'm crazy. I would build a 10-story building. People are like, oh, I don't want to be Queens. If we don't do something in 10 years, we're going to be worse than we were in the 90s. Like, we're flying high right now. The economy's good. Wait till everything hits the fan again.
Yeah.
And everything closes. And I'm not hoping these businesses don't close. Because if they close, then I'm out of business too.
Yeah.
But you can't just keep saying, oh, we don't want to do this. We don't want to do this. Like, you got to do something.
Yeah. Work together, make a plan.
Yeah. One more thing.
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt you.
No, it's okay.
The other dog whistle is Section 8. Oh, it's going to be Section 8. You always hear that.
Yes, I've heard that.
That's race baiting. That's that's racism. That's hidden racism. Because most people view Section 8 as for minorities. One, these developers don't want Section 8. They want luxury rentals, because they can make 10 times, not 10, but 4 or 5 times as much as Section 8. And these are big developers. Tritech is the developer of the Toro property.
Yeah.
They did their market research. They know they can rent these or at 80, 90% capacity. They're not just building this and going, I hope they come.
Yeah, right.
These are multi-million-dollar companies that do developments all over the eastern seaboard. There's huge market analysis involved in this. They're not just building this and, like I said, and going, I hope we rent these. Like, they're going to rent them. They know they are.
Yeah, I think what bothers me the most about the whole situation. Well, first is the Toro project. Is it even? Is it finalized?
No,
like they're going to do it, or it's still in talks.
They had the first public meeting last week. It's like in the very, very early stages.
Early stages. Okay. So even if it did go through, it probably wouldn't probably be starting to get built or finished for a few years, right?
Multiple years.
Multiple
yes.
years.
Multiple
Okay.
years. I mean, you see it around Bayshore. These other projects. Unfortunately, that's the other
takes
problem
time.
with New York, Long Island. Everything takes forever. It takes months,
Yeah.
months, leading into years.
Yeah, get the permits and all that fun stuff.
Yeah, the approvals, the zoning changes, things like that.
Yeah. What else do I want to talk about? All right, so, I mean, that's basically with Bayshore. It's like I said, again, selfishly, I just wanted to ask those questions because it's something that I hear a lot of, and I've only lived in Bayshore for, I think, a total of 4 years now. Yeah, about 4 years now.
Yeah. Where are you from originally?
Selden.
Okay.
Like Selden. So
Yeah.
still
Further
Suffolk.
out east.
Yeah, still
Yeah.
Suffolk County, but further out east.
Yeah.
Now we moved to Bayshore because my wife has a full-time job in Manhattan.
Yeah.
So she
You gotta be
hops right on the
closer to the
Bayshore train.
Yeah.
There's an express
It's
train.
a brutal commute, though.
It is. Yeah. You know, she doesn't mind it too much. I don't know how truthful
Yeah,
that is,
wait
but
till the kids come.
Yeah, right. It'd be probably a
Yeah.
lot worse.
Yeah.
I'm sure. But you know, she's still young too. She's only 32, so you know, she also has that on her side.
Yeah.
And she, you know,
Yeah.
she passes out on the train, so
Yeah.
she, you know, gets a little energy.
Good.
But yeah, I'm always curious because, you know, you always hear extreme points as
Yeah.
far as the train station, the parking lots, the apartments. And I feel like no one ever comes up with a solution. It's just more like, why are they building these damn apartments?
It's always just no.
Or yeah, it's just, or people on social media that just go crazy. And it's, why doesn't everyone just want to work together to
Yeah.
figure out a solution
Yeah.
instead of just beating the crap out of the other side?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Agreed.
It's like, if your opinions, you know, you can have an opinion, but you don't have to be right.
Yeah.
You know, just
Yeah.
hear the other person out.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And maybe neither side's right. It's somewhere in the middle.
Yeah, exactly. So, is there anything else you wanted to add from your business standpoint that we didn't bring up with your business? Kind of like what you specialize in. You said commercial.
Most of what I
litigation
do
and
is
construction.
Construction based. I really do all litigation,
Okay.
except criminal. I don't do any criminal.
Okay.
Because that's just a different world.
That's different. Okay.
I would say I probably do 60% commercial,
Mhm.
meaning most of that's construction based,
Mhm.
real estate construction based.
Okay.
Maybe even probably 70%. The other 30%, I do plaintiff work on the personal injury medical malpractice side.
Okay.
But litigation is litigation.
Mhm.
That's really my theory on it, and I really only take select cases on that. It's usually cases that I like
Mhm.
or people that I like. Like I'm not like an ambulance chaser. It's not what I
Yeah.
do because that's not the world I want to get into.
Mhm.
And I actually find that work to be a lot of fun too, because particularly when you have good clients, you're really advocating on behalf of them.
Mhm.
That you know, I have some interesting cases. I won't get into the details, but these people have really been harmed. You know,
Yeah.
they've been wronged, and you feel like you're truly their advocate.
Yeah, it's gotta
Whereas
feel good.
on the commercial side, you're certainly helping somebody with a problem, but in most cases, you're helping some wealthy person.
Mhm.
You're just shifting money around
Yeah.
essentially, you know.
Yeah.
And
No, I hear you.
there's certainly there's value in that, and
All right.
but you don't get a lot. You don't go home and be like, I'm so happy I helped this guy out. you know?
Yeah. No, I hear you. I hear you. All right, so let's wrap this up.
All right.
Is there anything you want to leave off with, or
No, just thank you very much.
Cool.
This is good, and you keep going with what you're doing.
Thank you,
this
man.
is
I
really
appreciate
good,
it.
and
Thank
I've
you.
listened to all of them so far. I think they're
Thank
great,
you.
and
Thank you.
keep growing.
Thank you. I will. You too.
Good, cool, very good.